Optimization Podcast. Lando here, and I'm joined by my friends, my fellow coworkers, and very educated people in the world of health and fitness. Liv Langdon, the nutrition and food manager here at On It, and Shane Hines, the director of fitness education. Don't let that fool you. I wrote that down because that was really hard to remember.
Lots of words.
So how you guys doing? This is your first podcast. You excited?
I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, Shane, you've had a little experience, huh?
I've done a few podcasts here and there. Yeah.
Okay.
It's been a lot of fun.
Okay.
It's nice because it's always just a good open conversation between.
It's just talking, but with big things in your face.
Yeah. What is this?
No puns or any type of things intended in that statement. Anyway, down to the real stuff. So we have summer coming up here, and everybody's getting worried about their appearance. Well, not me, because I have confidence and I'm not going to be worried about it. I'm going to be who I am on that beach. I'm going to ride the waves. I'm going to do everything I want to do. I'm not going to worry about how I look.
And he works out every day.
I work out every day, but you wouldn't notice. But everybody wants to have that six-pack abs. Everybody wants to have those nice-looking abs, right? But it's not easy. It's really freaking tough. I mean, let me give you an example. Okay, so Liv is our nutrition person here at On It, and so I asked her, it was about a couple of weeks ago. I was like, Liv, I really want you to help me out. I'm starting this new training with a CJ over at DeFranco's gym. I want to make sure that I'm doing everything right. And you said, okay, well, over the weekend, just use MyFitnessPal or something and track what you eat. And it's like, in my head, I was like, I've already done this before, whatever. And, this is not going to do much for me. But when you actually track what you eat, you discover a lot about yourself. All the little things add up. And I didn't go back to her. I never emailed her back because I realized, hey, I can't drink 6 beers. I can't have pizza, burgers, and French fries and expect to see any results. So you guys wrote this whole great article on the On It Academy. You can see it at onit.com/academy. And it's a 6 weeks transformation diet. And it's a diet. And then there's also a whole fitness program that Shane put together. So when we're talking about this particular subject, obviously food is going to be the biggest deal. Yeah,
I would say diet is probably 80% of the whole factor or the equation. And I would say fitness is obviously a huge part as well, and exercise. But if you're not eating well, you're not going to see anything in the mirror. It's just...
So what is... everybody that does these things and goes on diets or whatever thing that might be going on, with Weight Watchers or whatever it is, what is the number one fault do you guys think there is that's committing to somebody's failure in these things?
I think that the biggest thing with all the fad diets that are out there right now are they're not sustainable. So people do them and they will have this hype for a little while going on, and then they'll probably drop some weight. It'll be water weight mostly, and then maybe it'll lead to fat loss. But eventually it's not going to be sustainable. If you're cutting out an entire category of foods that you love, especially like carbohydrates, or, if it's sugar food, something that you enjoy eating, you're never going to be able to last an entire lifetime eating that way. It's just impossible. I mean, like life without beer, that would suck, Can you imagine? I mean, I'm not keen to beer, but wine, for instance, if I had to cut out wine, that would be awful. So eventually when people start eating or going back to their normal habits, they kind of go extreme the other way, and they overeat and they overindulge and then put weight back on. So I think the problem with all these diets is they're just too extreme the opposite way.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that, go ahead, Shane.
And I was just going to say that because of that extreme and not being sustainable, that if you swing over to the other end of the pendulum, which is then sustainability and being consistent, that consistency, and this is probably going to come up a few more times in this conversation, but that consistency is one of the greatest factors in seeing those various results that come about, both in nutrition and with the fitness side.
And, I think one thing is there's a lot of people, I'm this way, I know a lot of people this way, they're all or nothing. So they don't want the slow road progress to optimizing their diet. They just want to go all in at the moment, stop right there. And like you said, that leads to failure a lot of times. And then they have that one failure, like, well, I already ruined it. So, I might as well just go off the rails.
Right. I mean, we unfortunately live in this instant gratification society. So people, they eat clean. I hate that word, clean. They eat well for a day. They go on their diet, and they just think that they should see results tomorrow. And that's just not the case. It's, you can't lose weight that fast and have it last for a long period of time. So like you said, it's not going to be something that you're going to see overnight. And even if you are doing something 100%, you're giving it all you have, you're not going to be able to optimize your body from the inside out for any length of time other than when you're really doing it.
Okay. And so when we bring in the fitness part of it, a lot of people would say that maybe the term I'm trying to use here is they try to outrun their bad diet, right?
Yeah.
So how does that come into play? Because you got to fuel yourself at the same time.
You do. And Liv sees how I eat here throughout the day. And
mounds of food.
She uses that term, fuel.
He has a whole bison carcass at his desk.
I come and he has just a mound of brown rice and meats and vegetables.
And
it
big
looks...
bottle of Canadian maple syrup.
Well, I think one of the things that, that we tend to think about is often, and portion does play a role, but if we look, and this is funny, and she won't mind my saying this, but like my wife eats like I do as well. Mm-hmm. And she's, not big at all. She's skinny. And so even my own family members have asked her, they're like, how... You eat a lot of food. Like, how do you keep that? That one of the biggest things is that the idea of, as Liv was talking about, just being able to eat, like eating well and eating clean most of the time. If you do that, but consistently over time, that the amount of food plays a much less, like not as big a role as, as long as it's balanced with the fitness at the same time. But because if you're fueling and that your food intake is simple, one of the things that I always thought was really interesting was there are a number of schools of thought on how, the best way for us to eat. And I think more and more it's been very refreshing to see that there are more and more people talking about there is no one way for everybody. It's different for each person, and it takes time to kind of figure that out. But between these various schools of thought of to carb or not to carb, meat to not to meat, and that the biggest validation is all this scientific backing, all this science that says, well, no, if you eat this way, it will take care of this and this disease and that, condition, and all of these things start to disappear. The irony is if you look at the scientific backing between each of those schools of thought, they're basically clearing up all the same things. And one thing that I always used with my clients and working with individuals was, well, I was just looking at what's the common thread between all of those, because there's obviously a truth in each of them and that they're working for different people. And on a very simple level, one of the first things is that every single one of them takes out processed food. Mm-hmm. Packaged processed foods.
Wait, so I can't have lean cuisines? That's not going to work?
The worst.
Oh, man.
The worst. But he's so right. I mean, that's at a very basic level. That's the first thing I tell people. How much processed food do you have in your diet? And that's a term that people are like, well, what's processed? What's not processed? And so, the paleo diet obviously is a diet that kind of encompasses itself based on that. You want to eat from the ground, how hunter and gatherers ate. And it's really essentially like one ingredient. So you go to a store and bison, the one ingredient is bison. If you go to the produce section, apple is one ingredient. So you don't want it to list like all these ingredients that have a bunch of preservatives, like things that you can't even pronounce. And those types of things, our bodies don't have enzymes to break down and digest. So, essentially they're going to cause cause complications that we may necessarily see. We can't attribute one specific chemical to our weight gain, but the accumulation of all of them together will cause us to not digest properly and assimilate nutrients properly or as optimally as we want to. So that's the issue.
Well, and I think a big key to that, again, just looking at the one side and then flipping it at the same time, is kind of looking at, it's this accumulation of all these little things that kind of like what you were saying, like you were tracking your diet and you're going, oh, wait, well, this isn't bad on its own, but then if I have this combined with this and then over like each day having a bit of that, like over time, yeah, that builds up.
Diet meltdown.
Yeah. And looking at that and going, oh man, that's okay. That's actually a lot. The flip is the same, to reverse engineer like what we're working towards with, the article, to be able to see my abs. What does that take? It's actually the accumulation of all the little things that you do right that works towards that. And so having that cleaner overall diet, it doesn't mean that you can't have stuff. What's interesting is that the cleaner, I know I'm using clean, you don't like clean.
clean.
But
It's just such a,
But the better you eat, the less processed food overall that you eat, what ends up happening, I found, and I've seen, and you probably can attest to this, is your cravings for all those other things start to go down as well. You don't actually, because you're giving your body what it needs, that it's not going to send signals that for us is going to be, well, what's the easiest and processed food is that? That's, genetically, like it understands if I take this, it's going to feed me more instantly than the time to make some food that's then going to fill in. And it's like, this will give me that instant little spike and it will give my body what it's saying it needs. But if you eat consistently well, you're giving your body what it needs. So then it stops calling out, hey, I need some more of this now, please. It's like, oh, I feel pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've kind of seen that. It's kind of funny. So I'll get these crazy cravings for things, these terrible foods and beer or whatever. But if I go have a really hard workout, a good workout, for some reason, something psychologically changes in my head. And once I'm done with that workout, like, I don't want that anymore. Like, I crave something nutritious. And I don't know if that's kind of the same thing you're talking about. Maybe my body is just talking in my mind or something. Maybe I have voices. Maybe I'm crazy. That's a possibility. But it changes.
My mind is telling me no.
Oh my God.
But my body is telling me yes.
That was
All right.
beautiful.
That's absolutely, yeah. And I think that that's like a big, that's a tied in with back to what you were talking about in terms of how does the fitness tie in, and how does, we tend to go, okay, I'm not going to do anything. Oh, 2 weeks out from when I want to have the body that I feel I need. And then I go on this crash diet, even if it's a month, I'm going to go on this crash diet. The thing is that oftentimes those crash diets deplete us of the fuel that we need to be able to train hard. And usually the training that comes with that diet is train really, really freaking hard. And so now you've increased the demand on your body, but you've decreased what you're willing to give your body. And that's not sustainable over the long term. And that's why what's interesting from the fitness standpoint, and if you go to the article and look at the workout, it will help. Some people may look at it and go, you know what, this isn't as hard hitting as I would think it would be for me to see my abs in the next 4 to 6 weeks. But the big thing is that consistency, if it's all the little things that you do right, it doesn't mean that you have to train like crazy all the time. What you could do is leading up to those periods of time throughout the year where you're like, okay, for this period of time, I'm going to train really hard. Well, if that's in the spring getting ready for summer, and say you have another period of time in like prior to Christmas, a lot of people will try and diet and train really hard so that they can justify enjoying the foods that they're having. If in between those times you train consistently, even if it's light, you've been consistently setting your body up and ramping it to be ready to really hit it hard. And you'll actually see way more results from a 4 to 6 week period of intensity if you've just been consistently doing, even if it's a little bit, something just all the time. Then it's not as difficult. And because you're consistently doing something, your body's already in the mode. You're in a consistent mode of fueling it. So then when you're time to train, you're like, okay, instead of decrease what I'm already eating, then just keep it the same and increase my intensity. Or maybe I allow myself to fuel just a little bit more so that I can really push it. But knowing that, hey, if I eat relatively well, over just the same as like the light working out consistently, then over that 4 to 6 period of time, I just lock it in and I don't have all of the treat things that I might have. And that combination is super powerful if you've already preempted it. And that's part of that consistency that feeds into that.
I think with the way, people grow up in this country and the education that we get for health and fitness and our school systems, whatever that may be, it's always just cut calories, exercise more, but you're not refueling yourself. And it's a hard concept to grasp. Like I've heard trainers tell people all the time, yeah, you need to eat more because you're not able to train hard enough because you're not getting all the nutritional elements that you need. So, I mean, how big is just the calorie counting part of this whole thing?
Well, I think that we focus a lot on calories and macronutrients, which are fat, carbs, and protein. That's like what everyone talks about. And of course, that's important, but micronutrients are equally as important, which are the vitamins and minerals in our food. So nutrient density of a food is one of the first things that I talk to my clients about. It's not, of course, there's different diets that attest otherwise. Like there's this, if it fits your macros, which is great for flexibility of diet. So if you're using something like MyFitnessPal and you can track your macronutrients, you can, at the end of the day, calories in, calories out. How many calories are you burning throughout the day? What is your resting metabolic rate? And then how much are you taking in? Like, obviously you basically need to burn more than you're taking in if you want weight loss as your goal. But there's so many factors that are involved in that. Like genetics play a factor, hormones play a factor. If you're an overly stressed person or have a stressful lifestyle and you're producing like loads of cortisol, it's going to be harder for your body to get into a fat loss mode. So calories, of course, matter. It's just that there are a lot of other factors that are involved. So you kind of have to have this bigger picture looking at everything, starting with your sleep cycles, how much water you're intaking, which is really important. People underestimate how much water to drink. I think everyone should drink a gallon of water a day. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but so many things that we are consuming are also dehydrating, like coffee, which I love coffee, but coffee is also dehydrating. So you want to have more water to compensate for that. So those two things. Then, obviously exercise is super important. And then genetics play a role. So I wouldn't attest to my whole family is overweight, so I'm overweight and that's going to be my destiny. That's definitely not the case whatsoever. But it does play a factor in everything. And then your hormones. So what is your lifestyle like? Are you overworked? Are you not sleeping a lot? Do you have a million things going on and you're really spread very thin? So if you can try to make sure that every kind of bucket in your life is somewhat balanced in a way. And then look at what you're intaking and focus more so on nutrient density of your foods before calories. It'll make you more sane, I think. Not counting things. I said in the article, I was like, hey, use MyFitnessPal. And I tell my clients to track their food solely because it gives you a perspective of what you're intaking on a daily basis. Not to get obsessed with numbers, because it leads to obsessive compulsive behavior. So just more so to map it out and be like, oh yeah, I do eat pizza and, more beers than I should, and some mac and cheese every now and then, like things that I can maybe cut back on that I didn't necessarily need at that moment, that maybe if I take that out of my diet, then I can fill that in with something that's more nutrient dense, where those calories were, rather than having empty calories, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think always the first things to go are always going to be carbs and sugar for when people get on diets. Right move? Debatable.
So, yeah, that's a huge, that's obviously very popular. Low carb diets are very big, and somehow, they attributed the paleo diet to low carb, which is not necessarily true. I mean, on the paleo diet, you can have lots of carbohydrates, from fruits and from potatoes. And, I know that there are certain people who don't want that in their diet, and others that do. It's just a brief science lesson. I won't get into it, but sugars, which are glucose molecules, that's all carbohydrates. So breads, grains, fruits, candy, all of that is a glucose molecule at its basic level. And so that will basically spike your blood sugar levels. And so if you are not utilizing that immediately for energy, so if you don't have an extremely high metabolism from being an athlete, it's going to be either stored as fat or stored as glycogen, which is your stored glucose in your muscle and your liver. So that when that is in excess, it'll be stored as fat. So that's where that whole idea comes from. But excess anything is going to store as fat. So excess fat will store as fat, and excess protein will store as fat. So I don't like to look at carbs as the enemy, because they are such an essential fuel source for your muscle tissue, your cognitive functions. It's so important to have carbohydrates in the diet, but amounts obviously do vary. What do you think?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Genetics. Okay. Now, let's be honest and real here for a second. There's some people, okay, do we have to really think about genetics? Because can some people, no matter what they do, just because they're genetics, that they're not going to be able to reach a certain point in their diet and fitness? Because I feel like people of different gene structures process food differently. Is that an atrocious statement, or is that... could be something behind that?
This is one of those things where and people may disagree, I'm like, no, genetics don't. I think a big part of it is psychological. Because what we have is a society that has, over time, defined what the ideal is. And that's the cover of every fitness magazine. But when you have that, it slowly starts to hone in on a particular body type. And we're all such different body types that you get a certain particular body type that then starts becoming that ideal. So those are the people that you bring in to take the photos of and be representative of what is the ideal. We're not using the broad base of body types across the board. We're just using one type. And then on top of that, those people are generally, they're professionals. That's what they do. They train for that cover. And when they are about to go in and do their shoot, they go through a whole process of shrink wrapping themselves so that in that moment they take the picture. This is what I look like. And so even if on some level we all acknowledge that and we all understand that, we cannot help but see day in and day out. Because now it's not just magazines when we stop by the store. Now it's on the internet and we see it everywhere. It's on our phones. And it gets... and that's not to knock the individuals who are in that position and doing, that work. They've worked very hard to get to where they are. But when it's been manipulated in a way that is telling everybody this is the ideal, then all of a sudden the idea of genetics starts coming in and going, well, then I'm genetically inferior because I can't look like that no matter how hard I seem to be able to work. But if you're training, and for most of us, like let's just think about all of us who have a job outside of training. So if we have a job outside, I'm the director of fitness education. I have a job outside of the training that I have to do. Like I train on top of my work. And so that's still something that I have to account for. And it could be very easy for the work to overtake and push me out of balance to a point where I'm not training as often. And so I have to work for that, just as everybody else does. And so when we have those greater levels of stress and we have all these other factors that start to affect our ability to be in an optimal state for the body to do what we're trying to ask it to do, it's hugely difficult. So I have a really hard time going, well, it's your genetics, so you're never going to be. One of my favorite, there was this poster, I don't know if you guys had seen it, but there was this poster of all these elite athletes, and they were talking about what does an elite body type look like. And it goes across, and it's this huge long, and it showed men and women of every different sport. And not only has their sport defined what elite means in terms of how it manifests itself in a body type, but they're all also genetically totally different. And so it was really interesting to kind of look at that and go, well, we look at Olympians as these are amongst the elite, pro sports, they're amongst the elite. So, and even they, within their particular sport, there's a certain type that tends to funnel in and it gets honed in because those people in that particular body type and the relative condition that their genetics allow them for excel at that one particular thing. So it's not coming back to just keeping it basic and just, getting the six pack that we're looking for. Not a huge proponent of genetics, and that really it's about the discovery of what your beauty, individual beauty is. And like your genetic beauty, whatever.
Dude, I just
that
want to
is.
hug you right now.
Yeah, that was a great motivational speech. I loved it.
No, but
I feel
seriously,
so good about myself.
seriously, that we
absolutely.
can't look externally at I'm trying to be like that person. Rather than make it external, make it an internal goal and go, all right, stand in front of the mirror. This is what I got to work with. Let me go in and let me discover the genetic beauty that lays within to this body and find that.
I'm going to talk to myself in front of the mirror the next time I take a shower. I'm going to make sure the window is closed. This is my body, and this is what I got to work with. No. I think it's a struggle everybody has, and it's funny. We went into this podcast talking about we're going to talk about all the ways we can get your abs, but then you realize, how important is it? It's not going to make you feel any better about yourself. To a small degree, but it's not going to change your life just because you have defined abs. That's ridiculous.
I mean, so I did those physique competitions just as a personal goal. And as you're doing it, it's an incredible process to see your body transform. I mean, it's really great to be like, I've been doing this for 2-3 months and my body is changing and now I can see my abs and they're shredded. Like, that's awesome. But what was crazy is, like, psychologically on the inside, I really never felt as if I was satisfied with where I was. You always think, like, if I look like this, I'm there. I did it. Like, It's over. Cool. Like, but
call it in.
You're like, that's it. All right.
Life is
like,
done.
go home.
Don't
need to go to the gym anymore. But I never felt that way, which is crazy. I never had the feeling where I'm like happy and this is awesome. So really what I was striving for was something that was more so about me accepting, like, who I am and what I look like. So, and then when I kind of got more into nutrition and alternative medicine and healing the body from within, I realized the way that I was eating and the way that my lifestyle wasn't healthy for me. And so things that I needed to care about, like my the percentage of body fat that I had like later on in life, not right now, but later on in life, I would like to have children. And like, that's very important for fertility. So, you know, those are things where I'm like, wow, like that matters to me more than like being like, oh yeah, that's cool. I could flex my abs for a little bit, which is really cool too. But like, it wasn't something that, it didn't fill me up, if that makes sense. Yeah. It wasn't something I'm like, wow, this is awesome. It's just, it was fleeting and it was awesome. And I admire people who can do that on a consistent basis and maintain that, because it's extremely, extremely difficult.
Yeah. But then you get to post on Instagram, you know, your photos all the time.
Yay.
Which, you know, I'll never do.
And then you fall into the trap of like doing that for like 3 years, and people are so used to seeing you a particular way, but really all you're posting are the pictures from that one photo shoot 3 years ago, and then they see you for real, and you're like, wait, what happened?
Yeah.
Catfish photo.
It's true. I mean, I diet down and I'll do photo shoots because it's, you know, looks great, it's fun. But then when I post them, I've started being like, hey, I posted one, I think, I don't know, a couple months ago. I did a photo shoot last summer, and I'm like, this is what I dieted for 2 months to look like this. I exercised probably a little bit more consistently and extra. I have a spray tan. When you're doing a photo shoot, like for a cover or just for any type of photo shoot that's probably going to be postable, there's about 1,000 pictures taken that day, you know? So like, yeah, if you sit in a mirror and take 1,000 pictures, like you're going to find a good angle. Like,
oh, for sure.
Woo, you know? So there's so many things that I don't know if everybody knows. So I want everyone to understand that. I think it's so important to be like, hey, like this is what went down for like that picture to be on display. And I'm not going to post like some motivational quote and just be like, you know, that's it. That's how I got it. You know, it's not about that. It's like, this is what I did to get there. And, you know, it's not to say that I'm not going to do it again or that you can't do it. I think everyone should strive for their best self, but it's so much more that goes into it that people, I don't know, are keeping secret for whatever reason. So,
yeah, before Photoshop, it was lighting.
Yeah.
There's a thing called lighting. Good lighting can do wonders.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm going to the beach this weekend.
What beach?
I'm going to Port Aransas. And so maybe this weekend I'll like take some photos on the beach with my shirt off and stuff, and like post those motivational quotes with it. I think that'd be great. Just
Winston
me,
Churchill.
Yeah, with
Never,
me
ever,
with my
quit.
beer hanging out on Memorial Day weekend, and with just like a Theodore Roosevelt quote or a Martin Luther King quote, just
Albert Einstein.
Just out of nowhere.
He's great. He has so many good quotes.
Or do the backwards one where I'm looking over my shoulder, just like, oh, you can see my butt. Oops, I didn't realize, you know? That'd be fun. Follow Life Slice on Instagram. This weekend it's going to get fun.
You do. And then you also apparently can have spray tans that you can make your six pack just show. So just tell the lady, just be like, spray me a six pack.
just get a like a pre-designed sunburn into my stomach that makes it look good.
Perfect.
Which I think, you know, and it's funny because we're joking about it now, but whenever we see, that's another thing, is that we see people who succeed and, you know, at that particular goal, and they get there. And for many of us, the automatic who may have not achieved that yet, if that was a goal of ours, then look and go, oh, it's photoshopped. It's, you know, there's all these other excuses. And I think that one of the things that can be difficult, and it's not that it's an excuse. Yeah, maybe it is an excuse, even if it's not meant to be an excuse. It's, again, coming back around to being able to reconcile what it takes to get to that. So we see, and that's the same, we see that across the board with success in anything. People who succeed, there's going to be everybody else who really want to succeed themselves, but then try to come up with all of these reasons as to how this person cheated the work that it took to get there. And you can never take that away from those who have worked as hard as they have to get there. But then what does that reflect back to us? What is the barrier to our being able to move towards that success? And I think a big part, you know, in context to what we're talking about right now, is the scary thing is the thing that we think we have to do, which is crazy dieting and train like there's no tomorrow. And that is scary, And mostly it's scary because it's not sustainable. We're trying to figure out how we are able to do that. And that, we jump into it, we push really hard, maybe we last a few weeks, and then we fall off. And then about 3 months to 6 months later, we try again, and then we fall off, and so on and so forth. But that one of the things that I've often found is when you try, I try and I'd be really good. It's so difficult, but it'd be really good to kind of look at all the elements in my training, my eating, my sleep, all these things. And then only change one variable at a time so that I could know what it was that really affected me. If you can do that, awesome. Most people cannot. If you ask anybody and they were to say, okay, so I'm going to try and drink more water. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try and drink more water today. And then in 3 days, you ask them, so what are you doing? Well, I'm drinking more water. I started exercising 2 times a day. I cut out all my carbs. I thought you were just starting with water. What happened? It triggers so easily our desire to then just start to change everything. And that can be super overwhelming. So if you actually allow yourself, not right now, because summer is right around the corner and you need to get 6-pack abs. So go get it. But after this, when it's done and you're like, I can't keep that up, come back and think about what are the small things that I can do. Because if I start to make changes in my food, I'm going to want to make changes in my fitness. If I'm going to do that, I'm going to want to make changes in my sleep. I'm going to want to make all these different elements. And if you do a little bit in each of those will be sustainable. And then they just become eventually habit. And then you don't even think about it. And it's thinking more of rather than a light switch, a dial. And it's just dial it up. How can I dial it up? And allowing for the waves that, if I go up, crash, okay, I'm still here. Up, crash, I'm still here. If I dial up, and then push just a little bit more than I'm used to, and then I back off and kind of go, oh, okay. Well, I'm not actually where I started even when I backed off. I'm at a higher point so that the next time I kind of okay, let's dial up. Now I get up a little bit higher and then push just a little bit more and then like a release of that pressure valve. But now my starting point is still a little bit higher, and that over time, way more powerful than... because it gives us a new starting point and a stronger foundation to continue to build off of. So starting small can be huge. And if in getting ready for summer, I didn't mean go kill yourself. But if you're doing that, do it. Just see how it feels. But when you're done, come back, give this approach a try for the next time you're going to drive hard. But if you're not into driving hard right now, just start small. Start simple. Take a look at the article, and there's a lot of really simple components that can start being implemented right away. And, from the fitness standpoint, it was from the fitness programming for this article, it was looking at, okay, how do we increase our metabolic rate so that, we start to create the environment for that fat loss to occur. Tie that in with really good eating, because from the 6-pack standpoint, the eating is going to be the big one. And then from there, also incorporating movement and mobility so that your body actually feels better. When we feel better, we are more likely to continue. And so I think that was a part of what was such a joy to be a part of this and kind of combine all together to put this resource out there, was that, we're giving you these elements to make you feel better, because if you feel better, you're going to keep wanting to go forward. You're going to keep wanting to progress, to keep moving up and getting better. And then, you keep on this track, and by Christmas, you will have 6-pack abs.
Just in time for all the bad food and turkey and all that good stuff.
But I the way that I kind of geared the diets was more so just to kind of give people an idea of so many different things that you can incorporate into your diet. The substitution guide is my favorite because they really are interchangeable. But I didn't want anyone to focus as much on number of meals per day. Like, should I be eating 6 meals a day or 5 meals a day or 4? Or how about that intermittent fasting article that just came out? It's not about how often or timing of eating. It's more so about like what suits your lifestyle. So if you don't like eating breakfast in the morning and you're cool with like not eating until 2 p.m., then you should probably do some form of intermittent fasting and eat during windows of time. If you like to graze throughout the day, like I love food. I like to just eat all the time. So I usually get in like 5 to 6 meals a day, just, little smaller meals. So whatever it is that people want to do or that makes sense in their lifestyle, just do that, but do that consistently. Like, don't do intermittent fasting one day and then do 3 meals the next day and then 6 meals the next day. Just do the same thing every day. Like, that's so important. And just continue to do that. Consistency, again, is just so key for a weight loss period, but also getting a 6-pack.
Okay. So for people that are listening that haven't read the article yet, let's try to figure out just some baseline things we can give them to get started. Maybe, as we said, summer's around the corner. You're not going to get your 6 abs in time. It's probably too late, well, depending where you are, but building on sustainability, what are some good, quick things they can do in their lives on the diet side and on the fitness side to get headed in the right direction?
So something like my clients love this, and I don't know, including my dad. He's like, "Oh, this is the best tip. You have to tell everyone this tip." But to me, like, so when you have a carbohydrate, like let's say you want an apple for a snack, or you're eating oatmeal in the morning for breakfast, don't just have oatmeal and don't just have an apple. Pair that with a fat or a protein, because carbohydrates are very easily digested. Fat and proteins are slower digested. So when you eat those things, pair together. So if you're having oatmeal with eggs in the morning, or a little bit of peanut butter in your oatmeal with eggs, and then apples, and then you're adding some nut butters to it, or a sliced avocado or something like that, you're actually taking that carbohydrate and making it slow down the digestion of it, so it lowers the spike in your blood sugar. So it's your blood sugar spiking slower, which is going to be better for assimilation of nutrients from digesting, and also it's going to be better for weight gain in general. So that is, to me, is something so important, is macronutrient pairing. Always have a protein with every meal, a lean source of protein, and then fat with your carbohydrates together. So you can do protein and carbohydrates, fat and carbohydrates, or all 3 of them together at every meal. So even if it's a shake that you're having, rather than having just a fruit smoothie, add a little bit of protein to your smoothie, or add a little bit of chia seed, nut butter, something like that. So you're really getting all of your macronutrients, and then in turn, if it's a nutrient-dense food, all of your micronutrients as well.
Cool. Shane, on the fitness side of things?
On the fitness side, I think, and real quick, I just want to say, actually, because kids are very sensitive to the foods that they eat. Like, you can see the shifts in them much quicker because they haven't gotten used to like deadening their senses down the way we do as adults. But we notice a huge difference with that with our kids.
Oh, good.
Yeah, when we do that balance, and if that balance isn't there, you can see it go off.
That's great. And then another thing, sorry to cut you off.
No.
But if you're at like something that's really gets people excited is if you're at going out to dinner and they have bread, which I don't always promote bread, but if there is bread, putting a little butter on the bread. So bread is your carbohydrate and butter is your fat. So rather than just having bread and spiking your blood sugar really quickly, have a little bit of butter on it. It's actually better that way anyways. And my dad's like, yeah, totally. Yeah. Let's do it.
From the fitness standpoint, very simply, just to get started, is go for a walk and block out. It doesn't have to be a walk. It can be anything, but block out a time of the day that is easiest for you. Don't try and block out a time of the day that you think will be best or ideal for you to train. It's block out a period of time that is right now in your current place, easy for you to go in and get 20 minutes. and then adjust it. And it can start as simple. People don't put enough value in just going out for a walk, because not only is it physically getting your body going and getting your body moving, but psychologically you feel really good. You're getting to a place where you're now starting to create a shift in the hormones in your body. You're now starting to create the use of the resources that you're storing in your body. You're kind of setting off all these processes hormonally, chemically, to be able to feel like you feel. That's the runner's high. You can get that off a 15-20 minute walk when you come back, because your body is starting to move and it's triggering everything that's going on. So blocking out a small period of time, 20 minutes, but then really sticking to that and not allowing anything to come in and shake that, because it's not just about your training, it's about you time. And that's one of the biggest obstacles in getting our fitness, is justifying being able to take care of ourselves. We don't take care of ourselves, at least not in this society. We push so hard. And even when we're trying to take care of ourselves, we push so hard even to do that. And it doesn't give us the requisite, like, that we need in order for that to really take hold. So just really take that time for yourself and don't compromise on that. And then inside of that, whatever it is that you're going to do, whether it's a simple body weight workout at home that you can do, or just, going out for a walk and getting going. That would be number one place to start.
That's simple. Well, guys, this is a really fun conversation. I feel like we learned a lot of things. I think I learned a lot about myself. I don't know if you guys do, because you guys are superstars.
No,
But
Shane just calmed me down with his whole USA breath right there.
yeah.
So I'm like in a serene state right now. I'm like, so calm.
Well, that's awesome. So everybody, if you want to read this article and learn more, there's a meal plan on there. There's a whole fitness regimen. Just go to onnit.com/academy and search for the 5 reasons why you can't see your abs. See your abs.
See your abs.
5 reasons.
See your abs.
See your abs. 5 reasons why you can't see your abs. It's on there. And I also want to ask you to please go to iTunes, give us a rating, and give us a review. If you do that, I'm going to give away a package. So if you go leave a review, I'm going to find a random review in the next coming weeks that you post, and I'm going to give away a free On It package with the goodies.
Boom!
So just for helping us out. And I also want to let you know to go, this is very, very secret, but you should go to onnit.com/marvel right away. You should go there, put your email address in there. You're not going to regret it. Liv and Shane, thanks so much for joining us. We're going to have you back.
Yeah.
I think we're a good team here. I think this is good stuff.
I like the vibes. Good vibes.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks Liv. Thanks Shane.
Thanks, Orlando.
Till next time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Get at it.
Peace.